start this off, this occurrence did happen to me. I just wasn't born yet. My mother was very, very pregnant with me at this time. She was 17 years old. Her birthday was in a few weeks, as was mine. She was in a car with her friends. They'd gone out to dinner at the local restaurant, met up with my father and his friend. They left around 8. It was winter. The earth was damp from melted snow. It got dark early. The car was full of 17 to 19-year-old girls. They start to notice a gray Jeep that's been behind them for a while. From what my mother told me, it started out as a small fear that they all masked with humor. They joked about how I might be following them, but really, they were more just spiked on adrenaline. The driver, my mother's best friend and my godmother, decides that they'll pull into a driveway and pretend that it's their house and see what the car does before they freak out more. Immediately as they pull in, the car pulls in right up behind them. It's dark, but they can see a male in his 30s cackling and yelling from the car behind them. The man opens his door and starts walking up the driver's side. Quickly, my aunt pulls out in reverse through the house's lawn and onto the street. They sped off, thinking that was probably the end of it. They'd lose the guy now for sure. The guy had gotten back in his car and was behind them again in less than a minute. He kept creeping up on the car and then swerving like a madman. He had tried to run them off the road. My mom says she clutched her stomach because she was sure he was going to succeed. This kept up until they reached town. They all decided to pull into a Kroger, and then they booked it inside. They all dashed across a slippery cement lot. My mom says the man had tried to run her over, specifically. A pregnant girl being chased by a Jeep. That part gives me chills to think about. I was almost murdered a week before I was born. My mom and her friends made it inside. They found a cop, and after a while, it was clear whoever the guy was, he'd left. They never found him. I recently acquired a new roommate. The entire situation should never happen to me, but I needed someone to help with rent. So Craigslist posting later, he moved in. His name was Greg, and he disclosed to me that he did have some strange sleeping behaviors. Sleep talking, sleepwalking, night terrors. Funny thing was, I also had a history of sleepwalking, but only on rare occasions. The first incident occurred about 1 week later when I heard him screaming in the middle of the night. Since we both slept on different rooms and different sides of the house, the screams sounded distant, but enough to scare me so much I ran to check on him. As I get closer to his bedroom, he stopped screaming, so I just went back to bed. For the next month, he had no issues. I noticed he had no friends or family that would visit, and I never saw or heard him on the phone or texting. Then another random night, Greg started screaming. Same thing. I got up and started to go to his room, but he'd stop. Then, one night, I was awoken by screaming in my bedroom. I couldn't see anything in the panic, so I turned on the bedside lamp, and he was at the foot of my bed, wearing some sleeping clothes, athletic shorts and a t-shirt. He scared me, so I started screaming and I woke him up. He apologized and went back to bed. Then the scariest thing happened. About 2 nights later, I awoke to clanking. It sounded like tools and hammers tapping. I turned on the light to see Greg kneeling down in a corner working on something with his hands. A few seconds after turning the light on, Greg froze, then slowly turned his upper body around and stared blankly at me while I laid in bed. I was beyond creeped out, so I slowly slid out of bed and left the house. After sleeping in my truck down the road in an empty church parking lot, I returned to the house at about 8 in the morning. Greg was gone. All of his belongings were gone. No signs of him anywhere. It was like he never lived there. I didn't know any of his friends or family, so I had no one to call about him. Days turned to weeks, weeks into months. When I moved out after the lease was up, I was moving furniture out of my bedroom. In the corner of the room where I last saw Greg kneeling down, I realized the floor vent for the air conditioning was loose. Inside the floor vent was an envelope with tons of pictures of me sleeping. The pictures had handwritten dates and times written on the back of the pictures. I truly believe Greg was preparing to kill me that night, and he realized it, because it was sleepwalking Greg that was going to do it. He left to save my life. It appears Greg had been coming to my room almost nightly and working on making the broom handle a stabbing weapon, and I never heard until the last night I saw him. This happened to me a few years ago when I was working at a retail store in a mall. I was probably around 19 at the time. For a better visual, I am female and about 5'5". The incidents occurred around the holidays when the mall stayed open longer to allow people more time to shop. Unfortunately, their timers on the parking lot lights are not adjusted for this, so by the time we close up the store, the lights are already out. That night we were also being hit by a particularly aggressive blizzard. Typically, two people always close the store together because it involves counting money. But you guessed it, that night I was closing alone. Nothing out of the ordinary happened all day, and it's a pretty boring job, so I didn't think twice about walking alone to my car in the dark. I just really wanted to get home safely before the blizzard got too bad, as it had been snowing for a few hours already. Walking to my car, I kept my head down to protect my face from the snow, which is why I noticed the close to fresh set of footprints in the snow, leading straight to my driver's side door. If that wasn't creepy enough, there were imprints on the driver's side window that looked very much like someone that cupped their hands and peered into my car. It was unsettling, but I shook it off, thinking that maybe with the snow, someone had walked up to the wrong car and were confused. I looked around to be sure, and there was only one other car in the lot at the time. Probably 10 spaces away was a big old Suburban idling. Satisfied that no one was about to ambush me, I opened my car to get my scraper to start getting the 2 or 3 inches of snow off my car. As I'm cleaning off the windshield, the idling Suburban drove over to my car and the windows rolled down. A scruffy man smiled eerily at me. "Want some help?" I immediately just felt uneasy and on edge, so I politely declined. It wasn't like I was really struggling anyway. He tried again, insisting it was cold and nasty out and he could get me on my way faster. At this point, I grabbed my snow scraper. Mine is about 2 feet long and really sturdy plastic, with both hands in front of me ready to use it as a weapon, and firmly told him I was fine. He looked irritated, and I thought he might insist further, but mall security came around the corner on one of their vehicles with the yellow flashing lights at that point. He looked irritated, rolled up his window, and drove slowly away. Mall security even pulled up next to me and asked if I needed help, but at that point I wasn't about to trust anyone, and I told them I was fine. I was so put off by the man in the Suburban, I didn't even think to say anything to mall security. I cleaned off my car enough to drive and got my booty home. I'm so happy I grew up with the world's most paranoid mother, so I noticed things like footprints in the snow.